And I'll follow up as well to the answer from the Honourable Lady opposite. The Prime Minister did commit yesterday that he would follow up with the Honourable Member's question at the Liaison Committee. He did commit to that. I have asked about whether or not there is more detailed information about the discussions, but I do not have any information about the content of those discussions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Minister inadvertently misled us earlier, because the Prime Minister yesterday, I was at the Liaison Committee, did not say what she said. He did not say, to the best of my memory anyway, that he had notified other officials. If he had notified other officials, surely, as the Minister would understand, that meeting would have appeared on the list on the transparency records of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office for April 2018, and it is not there. So either she has misled us inadvertently today, or the Prime Minister did so perhaps more deliberately previously.
Mr. Speaker, I was obviously not at the Liaison Committee yesterday. I was, as you may know, giving the ministerial statement in order to fast-track the ratification of Finland and Sweden to joining NATO, another measure that is absolutely crucial to the safety and security here, and then later on in the Chamber ensuring that we pass the funding. In terms of the question, therefore, I can repeat again what I said in my opening words. It is my understanding that the Prime Minister confirmed that where he had met that he had met Mr. Lebedev without officials present, and that he subsequently reported those meetings to officials. That is my understanding, and that is what I have been told. If that is not accurate reflection, then I do apologise, but this is not me misleading. That was what I was told. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to intelligence reports that I have seen, a serving FSB officer reported in 2017, and I quote, "Alexander Lebedev is considered by the FSB to be an important asset." More recently, he has significantly expanded his businesses in occupied Crimea, pleaded with the Kremlin for economic help for occupied Crimea, and was revealed as the indirect owner of a company called Energomash, which supplies the Russian nuclear program. How is it possible for the Prime Minister to stay in office if he is conspiring with an agent of the Russian state?
Thank you very much. As the member opposite knows, I cannot comment about any potential future sanctions that may be introduced, because we never do that in advance. So I cannot give any more comment on the particular individual that is discussing. In terms of following up, because I know that the Honourable previous member asked me to be more clear about what the Prime Minister said at the Liaison Committee, I have just been passed a note that apparently the Prime Minister says that he thinks he mentioned this meeting to officials. That is, I'm reporting what I have been told. Thank you.
I have to say to the Minister, it's deeply unsatisfactory that she comes to the House so ill-prepared, because this matter has been doggedly pursued by the Honourable Member for Halifax for many, many months. Can I just say to the Minister, does she agree with me that in light of the admissions that were made at the Liaison Committee yesterday, it would be wholly inappropriate for the Prime Minister, if he is about to resign, to try and stay as a caretaker Prime Minister in light of these very serious allegations that reflect on his ability to keep this country safe?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is expected to make a statement shortly to the people of this country, and I obviously cannot comment on that in advance. I do hear what she says.
Just for my clarification, the Minister previously said we will be getting something in this House. Are we now saying it's to the people, not to this House?
I understand that he's intending to make a press statement to the people of this country.
So not this House, I take it. That is totally not satisfactory. Alistair Cameron.
Satisfactory, Mr. Speaker, if I may. admire your magnificent understatement there. Surely this admission, though, illustrates why this man cannot remain as Prime Minister even as a caretaker. He is simply not to be trusted. I've seen 4 other Prime Ministers stand at that dispatch box in my time in this House, and I cannot imagine any one of them becoming involved in an enterprise such as this. The relationship with Russia goes right through this government. We were told 4 months ago that we would get the report into the golden visa schemes. We still haven't got it today. When will we see that report published? Why has it been delayed?
The visa scheme has ceased.
Directly.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it is truly horrifying what we've heard, and deeply disturbing and worrying that the Prime Minister, then as the Foreign Secretary, met with an agent of Russia. Can I ask the Minister, because I've not actually heard this, would she actually condemn that meeting?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Speaker, I just need to repeat again that all government ministers are made fully aware of their responsibilities to safeguard national security sensitive information, as I am and as others are. And I cannot comment any further because I do not have any further details of this meeting. Thank you.
Dame Angela Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister really can't come to this House so unprepared that she can't give us any answers when the Prime Minister has now belatedly admitted that he met an agent of the Russian state whilst Foreign Secretary without any security or anyone else to listen to what he had to say to Putin's henchmen. She has now got to come to this House properly prepared and tell us why this disgraced Prime Minister has any right to stay in office a second longer, given that he is now a threat, a direct threat to our national security.
As I said earlier, I take this national security and the security of our citizens extremely seriously, which is why it is absolutely vital that the government continues to have Foreign Office ministers in place. I have inquired as to whether or not there are further details of the meetings and these alleged meetings, and I do not have any further details at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, given that the then Foreign Secretary went from the NATO meeting to these meetings, did he have any government papers with him in his possession at the time? And secondly, we know that the Prime Minister has been very careless in the past with his mobile phone number being available in public, I think for 15 years. Did he have his personal electronic devices with him at the time? And if he did, were they searched and examined by the security services after that meeting?
Mr. Speaker, as I have said again, I do not have any further details at this time. I have asked to see if there are further details, but I do not have the details at this time. The Prime Minister, however, has announced that he is stepping down and will be making a statement shortly, as we know.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why did it take until yesterday for the Prime Minister to admit that he'd met a KGB agent in secret? Will there be a published report on this matter?
Mr. Speaker, he was questioned yesterday and he answered the question yesterday. Today is today. Thank you.
Alex Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we know, the Prime Minister often goes into meetings, has conversations, and then has a lapse of memory. He had a lapse of memory after the meeting with Alexander Lebedev. Has he now recalled and informed the Minister of the conversation, that meeting? Because it's not just a national security matter, but Alexander Lebedev owns businesses in illegally occupied Crimea, which is Ukrainian, not Russian territory. So it's a matter not just for us, but also for the country of Ukraine.
Mr. Speaker, at the time, let us remember that at the time we had this devastating attack against a civilian on UK soil involving chemical weapons. That led to a massive effort by the Foreign Office to coordinate the expulsion of Russian diplomats from embassies all across the world. At this current time, the UK is also working with our allies across the world to counter Russian disinformation and to help remind the people across the world about the brutal and illegal invasion of Russia against Ukraine. In terms of the information that he requests, I do not have any further information at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I hope that in answer to my question and those of my colleagues, where the Minister has said she doesn't have the information at this time, I do hope we will get answers in writing in due course. But my question is, what reassurance can the Minister give us that the Prime Minister has had no meetings with any other KGB agents or other people who pose a threat to our national security?
In terms of writing, I understand that at the Liaison Committee yesterday, the Prime Minister committed to follow up in writing with the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. So there is a commitment to put information in writing, and that is important. I cannot comment on any other further meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think the Foreign Minister understands quite how serious this issue is, not only about our own national security, but at this time where Ukraine is defending its own right to its own land, it is completely undermining President Zelensky. So what analysis has her office undertaken to understand the impact of the Prime Minister's secret meetings?
So can I just say that that Russia is a top national security priority for this government. We have made huge strides to counter the threat by the Russian state. The National Security Council agreed the Russia strategy back in 2017. The government has published a full and comprehensive response to the ISC report back in January 2020, implementing a majority of the committee's recommendations. We have closed the Tier 1 visa route, a visa route which indeed was introduced, I believe, by the party opposite. We continue to call out Russian malign activities where they occur across the globe. Thank you.
Alison Toombs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Open Democracy has reported that the Conservative Party has received £62,000 in donations from Russian-linked donors since the current escalation of the conflict in Ukraine began, including a further £50,000 from Lyubov Chernukin, who is married to Putin's former Deputy Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that money buys influence. What analysis has she done of the influence that buys and where it goes in national security implications?
Mr. Speaker, transparency of information about political donations is really important. Only individuals on the UK electoral roll or UK registered companies are allowed to make political donations. It is an offence for political parties and other campaigners to receive donations from impermissible sources, and that includes donations from foreign nationals living abroad. That is the law, and that is the law that all parties, including the Conservative Party, need to uphold.
Ian Mance.
Well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given the revelations of the last 24 hours and the suspicions which have existed for quite a number of months, if not years, why would any of our allies now share any sensitive information with us while the current Prime Minister remains in office?
Because the UK has been leading the international efforts to stand up for Ukraine against Russian aggression. That is why allies across the world have been working with the UK, because we have been helping to lead the efforts to stand up for the people of Ukraine in the attack against their sovereignty, their democracy and their freedom.
Oh, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That the meeting with Alexander Lebedev took place is not the issue in question. There has been much controversy surrounding the meeting. Many feel that there's a lack of detail of what took place. Can I very respectfully say to the Minister who I have fondness for, will a full disclosure of all that has been discussed be made available with Alexander Lebedev? Will the threat to national security, given Lebedev's close links with the KGB and the Kremlin, be disclosed at the same time as well? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot disclose any further information at this time. I understand members want further information. He will also recognise that we would not disclose any information that might further put our own security of our citizens at risk, and that is extremely important about why we do not disclose information from time to time if it was to put people at risk. However, in answer to the questions that were asked by the Honourable Member, the Chair of the Select Committee yesterday, the Prime Minister did commit to write to her. She has that commitment from him. He has, of course, said since then that he will be stepping down and is expected to give further information on that. Thank you.
Right. Just before we start business questions, I'd like to refer to the exchange between the Leader and myself last week about the Youth Parliament, that we will have to lay for the Youth Parliament, but I would like to point out that the letter from me had not arrived to the Leader's office in time before business questions. I want to clarify that he was absolutely correct on that, but I do accept that the Leader will now take it forward with great heart and I'm sure with great speed. Right, let us start with business questions. Can I come to the Shadow Leader of the House, Thangham Debada?
Mr. Speaker, to ask the Leader of the House if he will give us the forthcoming business.
Good luck, Leader.
Speaker, it will be a pleasure. The business for the House commencing the 11th of July will include Monday the 11th of July, consideration of a Business of the House motion, followed by all stages of the Energy, Oil and Gas Profits Levy Bill, followed by a debate on motions relating to the liability of trade unions and proceedings in tort, increase of limits on damages, Order 2022, and the Draft Conduct of Employment Agencies and Employment Businesses Amendment Regulations 2022. Tuesday, the 12th of July, remaining stages of the Online Safety Bill, Day 1, followed by debate on a motion on restoration and renewal of the Palace of Westminster. On Wednesday, the 13th of July, will be consideration in committee of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, Day 1. Thursday, the 14th of July, a debate on a motion on Srebrenica, followed by a general debate on protecting and restoring nature at COP15 and beyond. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. On Friday, the 15th of July, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 18th of July includes Monday, the 18th of July, consideration in committee of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, Day 2. Tuesday, the 19th of July, a conclusion of consideration in committee of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, Day 3. Wednesday, the 20th of July, conclusion of remaining stages of the Online Safety Bill. And on Thursday, the 20th of July, business to be determined by the Backbench Business Committee. The House will rise for the summer recess at the conclusion of business on Thursday, the 21st of July, and return on Monday, the 5th of September.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Leader of the House for the forthcoming business, although his government is clearly not in any position to deliver it. The Prime Minister is resigning. We're hearing on Twitter there may be cabinet appointments happening, but we've had bills cancelled this morning. There is no doubt, as we have been saying for months, that this government is simply unable to govern. Inflation reaches the highest for 40 years. 59 members of the government, when I last printed out a copy of the speech, I think we're up to now, have resigned, and economic growth grinding to a halt. The hours in post Chancellor spending his first day on the job asking his boss to quit, not planning for how we're going to deal with the cost of living crisis. Now, as backlog Britain bulges, his Attorney General has been on television announcing her leadership bid. This is far beyond merely a distraction. This is a Tory government paralysed by sleaze and scandal, and with a shameful act of desperation, a Prime Minister dragging the country down with him as he goes, but I'm afraid to say his party has propped him up to do it. Yeah. Even if the Prime Minister is now Prime Minister in name only, and frankly that situation does need to change, there appears to be no one left to drive the work of government forward in Whitehall. Now, the Leader of the House has constantly been telling me that his government is getting on with the job. They're clearly not. We were told that appointments would be made last night. We're still waiting for ministerial posts in the Treasury, schools, there's no one there, justice, environment, employment, housing, levelling up, the flagship levelling up policy. Levelled to where I understand there's only one minister left standing. When will these ministers be replaced? What qualification do you now need to be a minister under this government? Who knows? Who knows? Not just unable to carry out their basic functions in Whitehall, the business of this House can't proceed. And the Right Honourable Gentleman may know that the Paymaster General referred questions about Council Bill committees to him. So I will ask him, what is happening to today's Levelling Up Bill committee that should have been going now for, I think, 12 minutes? I asked the Leader of the House, when will that be rescheduled? The Northern Ireland Cabinet Secretary resigned just a few hours ago. Where does that leave the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill? What is the plan for all of this? He's announced the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill for the 13th, 18th and 19th of July. Now, considering the seriousness of this legislation and the impact it has on our country's reputation, and the fact that this Prime Minister is now a caretaker only, what mandate does this government have to proceed? If it's not primary legislation, it's secondary. During the passage of the Building Safety Bill, the Minister admitted there were unresolved issues that needed statutory instruments passing to protect leaseholders. Is there anyone who can sign these SIs? Mr Speaker, in excruciating liaison committee appearance yesterday, the Prime Minister admitted that he'd met the former KGB agent with links to Putin without officials present in Italy when he was the Foreign Secretary. Now, I'm glad that my right honourable friend was able to ask questions, with your permission this morning, Mr Speaker, but not a single one was answered. Yep. Now, this is on security, Mr Speaker. If my right honourable friend is not able to get answers to questions when there was a context of a chemical weapons attack on British soil in which British people died, how is this a government that is functioning? And I ask the Leader of the House, with the greatest respect, can he tell us, how does any of this look like a functioning government? Yeah. Now, week after week, the Leader has failed to answer my very specific questions on the appointment of a new ethics advisor. Now, given the new revelations, just the new ones regarding Lebedev, surely the Leader of the House could agree with me today and hopefully answer my question today that a new ethics advisor is needed. Could he tell us when will this vacancy be filled, and can he guarantee that investigations ongoing prior to Lord Geit's resignation will be completed? Because, Mr Speaker, the first duty of any government, as we all know, is to keep its people safe. When the Security Minister resigns on the morning, we cannot allow this to drift into evening, let alone the weekend, and for this Conservative Party to continue to put national security at risk. Every single Tory MP, every single one, should take a long, hard look in the mirror, ask themselves how we got here, with a government that's collapsed before our eyes, putting the British people through an excruciating and dangerous act of desperation, with a caretaker Prime Minister, as my honourable friend has said, is even more dangerous as a caretaker than an actual Prime Minister. I may disagree with the Leader of the House politically, but I have huge respect for his office and for that of the Prime Minister. But, Mr Speaker, they propped him up, they were complicit, they have overseen 12 years of stagnation, declining public services and empty promises. We need a fresh start with a Labour government.
Leader. Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I think that there's a very clear difference between the two sides of this dispatch box. Now is the moment for calmness and for professionalism, not for ranting and not for overexcitement. Can I start, Mr Speaker, by saying the Honourable Lady mentioned national security. I think before we proceed, we should just recognise that it is the 15th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings. The Home Secretary is the Minister responsible for national security. She is in office. She is still the Home Secretary. She is in control of our national security, and there is no issue over our national security at any level at this moment in time. She mentioned the business. I presented the business of the House here this morning. That business will be delivered. That programme for the next 2 weeks, there are ministers in place to deliver that. And I would just gently say to her, she said, how are we going to proceed with the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill? Well, actually, we've concluded the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill in this House, if she paid attention. That bill is now concluded. I would say she's very concerned about legislation. There were only 4 members of the opposition in this House to debate that motion. That's how seriously they take the troubles in Northern Ireland. There were 0 Liberal Democrats. Only 4 of them could be bothered to turn up to debate that. She mentioned Salisbury and the issue over the chemical weapons. She supported a leader of the opposition who wanted to send the evidence back to Russia for them to consider. Just pause for a moment and think about who she supported at that moment in time. And I think it's all right heckling and saying we've got nothing to say. We're getting on with the business of government in a calm way. There are some bill committees that will not run today, but they'll be back up and running very soon. And she finally finished with Lord Geit. I declare my interest, Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of that, in that I'm assured that there are processes in place and those matters will continue to be reviewed and the results of those will come forward very soon.
Just right, darling.
Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the House continues to have confidence in the Prime Minister, my question requires a simple answer. Does the Leader of the House agree with the Prime Minister that if a complaint is raised against a Member of Parliament that is so grave that it triggers an investigation, that Member of Parliament or Minister should not be promoted or continue on the front bench? So my question to the Leader of the House is simple. Does he agree with the Prime Minister?
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure how that question is relevant to the business of the House in any way, shape or form, but if the Honourable Lady wanted to apply for an adjournment debate on any matter, she'd be welcome to.
Can I just say, those who were late, please don't embarrass me by standing. Can we now come to the SNP spokesperson? We're all waiting for Pete Wishart.
And we most certainly can, Mr. Speaker, and thank you ever so much. And he's away, and hasn't the Leader of the House been curiously quiet over the course of the past 24 hours? One of the few Johnson loyalists that was left standing last night, I thought we might have found him chained to the radiator with his beloved Prime Minister in the bunker this morning. But can I reassure him, he's a rank outsider to follow his Prime Minister. I think he's something like 80-1 just now to take over for the Prime Minister, but I think that's even a long shot even for him. But what a mess they have made of this. This is a Prime Minister who can't even leave the scene without almost burning the House down. He's the first Prime Minister in history who, when receiving that tap on the shoulder from the men in grey suits, told them to go and get stuffed. Surely there is no way on earth that he can remain in a position as any sort of caretaker, particularly with all the big issues that we have to consider and address as we go through the summer period. He's more an undertaker than a caretaker. And what a joke, can I say to the Leader of the House of a business statement this is, with a government at half capacity. There's barely enough ministers to respond to debates and to answer the questions, and business has been cancelled for the rest of the day. What happens to all these vacant positions? Will they all now return to the post? Does the Levelling Up Secretary now get his job back? And, Mr. Speaker, we need to debate this Prime Minister's legacy, because he will go down in history as one of the worst Prime Ministers in history at one of the worst possible times. In just 3 years, he's managed to decimate our international reputation, our economy and our democracy. He will be the 4th Prime Minister in 6 years. Maybe the problem isn't quite with whoever leads the shower over there. And people ask us, why do we want independence for Scotland? Well, I'm not asking that this morning. Independence would mean we would never get another Prime Minister who we never voted like him ever again. And isn't it funny, the man that's trashed so much of the democracy in the UK, one of his last acts was to write to our First Minister to try and deny democracy to our nation. He's now gone, Scotland will soon be gone too.
Well, Mr. Speaker, once again, there was not much in there that was relevant to the business of the House, but we await the Prime Minister's statement this afternoon. I can assure the honourable gentleman that vacant positions will be refilled as the reshuffle progresses today and tomorrow, and the government will continue to function in a professional way and deliver for the people of the United Kingdom.
Andrew Selou.
Mr. Speaker, can we have an urgent debate in government time, because I've already had a debate in Westminster Hall, on increasing general practice capacity where we have huge increases in population? The leader, I think, has similar issues that I have in my constituency. They exist all over the country, and I think it would show to our constituents that, notwithstanding what has gone on over the last few days, the government gets this, they take the issue seriously, and that serious work will go on this issue over the next few weeks and months.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I pay tribute to my honourable friend who's done a lot of work on this matter, and pay tribute to his leadership on this. He'll be aware that we are investing £1.5 billion to create an extra 50 million GP appointments by 2024. We want people to feel confident that when they have a problem, they can see a GP face to face, but I think it is something which is worthy of further debate, and I know my honourable friend will continue to press. I would encourage him to seek a debate in this House.
Ian Mearns, Chair of the Backbench Committee.
Very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Leader of the House for announcing the business and the Backbench Business Committee debates for the 14th of July. And can I also give the House notice that on the 21st of July, which has been allocated to the committee, that it would be our proposal in the first half of the day to have a debate on United Kingdom sanctions for human rights abuses and corruption. And Mr. Speaker, for quite a few years, the final Thursday before the summer recess has been a time which, when allowed, has been allocated to a debate on matters to be raised before the forthcoming summer adjournment. And the committee has agreed that it would be a fitting tribute to name this debate after Sir David Amess, who was truly taken from us last October. So our proposal is that this tribute would see the debate renamed the Sir David Amess Summer Adjournment Debate. Sir David was renowned amongst our colleagues for his regular appearances at our committee and his impressive contributions to pre-recess adjournment debates. So, Mr. Speaker, the Backbench Business Committee would like to honour his memory by naming the debate after him. I've raised this matter briefly in the House after Sir David's loss and had the support of the then Leader of the House. And, Mr. Speaker, I've written to the Chair of the Procedure Committee, to yourself and to the Leader to this effect.
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I pay tribute to the honourable gentleman and to his committee for the work that they do. Thank him for announcing the debate that he mentioned, and also from the dispatch box offer my full support to his recommendation to call the debate the David Amess debate. I'd be delighted. I hope I have the opportunity to respond to him in that and other members in that debate, and I think it's a very fitting tribute that he's introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know this may seem very mundane given the drama that's happening around us, but it's very important to my constituents. We've got several fantastic sustainable businesses, and I recently met with Kit Change, who make leggings and sporting tops out of plastic bottles that have been recycled, and Third Rock, who make sustainable activewear for climbing out of old carpets and discarded fishing nets, which is really important. But in my discussions with them, we've talked about the challenges and opportunities they face, in particular in relation to financing their small businesses. Please could we have a debate in this House about financing for small business who focus on sustainability and ethical sourcing of products?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question, and I would say it's not a trivial matter. I think the businesses up and down this country are the backbone of our economy. The government provides extensive business support for small and medium-sized enterprises, including sustainable businesses. The British Business Bank programmes are supporting over 1.77 million smaller businesses with £89 billion worth of finance. And I know she'll have the opportunity at Bay's questions next week if she wanted to highlight the fantastic recyclable business that she has in her constituency.
John Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the comments made a few minutes ago about David Amess, my former neighbour, David Amess. One of the many consequences of rising energy prices is that hundreds of swimming pools in this country face closure in the next few few months this has been raised this morning under DCMS questions, but it's not technically really a question for the Culture, Media and Sport Department. It's more Treasury and Energy. Now, if we have got any ministers left, by the way, in those departments, could we have a statement on how this crisis, potential crisis, will be tackled with all the implications for future generations?
Leader.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. It is a very important one. I have swimming pools in my own constituency that are struggling with the rising cost of global energy. It's something that the government understands and takes very seriously. That's why we've poured billions of pounds in of support. I hope the local authorities can find it in their within their means to help and support those swimming pools that are under pressure, but there may be the opportunity at base questions under the energy portfolio to raise that next week at base questions.
Mr.
Speaker, the 7th of July remains a very painful day for many Londoners. It's 17 years since 52 of them were murdered in London. 5 of those victims were actually people who had direct connections with Hendon, and include one of them, Anthony Fattier Williams, walked past me just 2 hours before his death. But, Mr. Speaker, my constituent, 9-year-old Precious, has a neurodegenerative disease resulting in complex health conditions, including scoliosis. Her medical team have advised that she needs an operation to insert maggot rods into her spine to correct this. The use of these rods was suspended in 2020 due to safety concerns. However, their use has now been cleared for procedures in places including the United States and other countries, as a modified version has been implemented. Precious's family and the spinal team at Great Ormond Street have been waiting for over 6 months for the MHRA's approval. Can we have a minister come to the dispatch box and update us on the progress of approving this desperately needed technology for my constituent?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable gentleman and join him in paying tribute to the victims of the 7/7. I think I may have inadvertently said the 15th anniversary. It is right, it is the 17th anniversary. Just turning to Precious, I'm sure that the whole House sends our best wishes to Precious, and I can assure the honourable gentleman that the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency are taking this matter very seriously. I understand he has written to the MHRA's Chief Executive, and they will be providing a full written response in due course.
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. I'd like to thank myself with this Leader of the House remarks on the 17th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings and remembering the 52 victims who died, and just a reminder that London will never be cowed by terrorism. At a time when we need stability across the government, we are seeing that the Minister for Policing has been appointed to another role. The fact that the Met Police, along with 6 other police forces, are in special measures does not give my constituents in Vauxhall the confidence that this government is stable. Can the Leader of the House please outline when we will get a reappointment in that important post?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for her question and for her comments about 7/7 and recognise the cross-party support on matters of national security. I can assure her that a reshuffle is taking place, is my understanding, that that's a very important role and will be filled very soon, and I'm sure then she'll be able to question the new Minister in due course.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Of course, as we commemorate the terrorist attacks on London, people should remember that the day before was a day of great joy, when London had been awarded the Olympics, and it was then tinged with sadness because of the terrorist atrocities that took place the following day. Over the course of the pandemic, the Department for Transport have continued to bail out Transport for London to cover the cost of the loss of income on fares. However, the Department have refused, quite rightly, to cover the cost of the Mayor of London not doing what he should have done in dealing with TfL's finances. Now, the current deal, Mr Deputy Speaker, runs out, I believe, next weekend. We desperately need an announcement from the Department of Transport for what's going to happen after next weekend in terms of financing for London Transport, because we cannot have a position continuing where the Mayor of London refuses to take the action that is required to reduce costs.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question and recognise that the challenge that Londoners will face if that transport system does not operate. He's right to draw attention to the amount of support that the government has offered, and he's also right to hold the Mayor of London to account. I will pass on his comments directly to the Secretary of State, but I hope that that the London Mayor will take firm action, get a grip of transport for London, and not rely upon the cash from the government that he's requesting.
Chris Bryant.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. All of the events of today sort of started with the Prime Minister throwing the kitchen sink at trying to preserve Owen Paterson in post, which of course the Leader of the House was instrumental in as well. The Standards Committee has produced a new code of conduct. It's ready to go. We've published it. We've also published a new procedural protocol, which would put in place, although there has been a sort of form of appeal in the past, a formal appeal through the independent expert panel, which is chaired by a High Court Judge, Sir Stephen Irwin. We can't use that, including for new cases, unless the government tables the motions, and I had hoped that we'd be doing that before the summer recess. I would urge him to think again about the last week and whether there's a means of us doing it before the summer recess, because otherwise there's a real danger that we'll be in legal jeopardy because we won't know how to deal with an individual case that might come along, which might be just as serious as that of Owen Paterson.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for the work that he's done and for the work of the committee. We had the final reports, I think, late last week, which the government is now considering. I know he's very keen to move forward, as is the government. I don't think it will be possible to have that debate before the summer recess, but what I'm happy to do is sit down with him at some point over the next week or to try and arrange a time which we can plan our way forward.
Daniel Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. This year alone, my right honourable friend will know that we're spending nearly £190 billion of taxpayers' money on the NHS. Spending on the health service is increasing every year as a percentage of overall government spending. We're very proud in Shropshire, and my right honourable friend, the member for Ludlow, and I secured £312 million for major modernisation of our local A&E services. Not a penny of that money has been spent 4 years after we have secured it. Can we have a debate in government time about the quality and efficacy of various levels of NHS management? Because certainly in my trust, I am starting to lose confidence in them.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question and pay tribute to the work that he does holding local health authorities to account in Shropshire. He'll be aware that the government has introduced a £39 billion package through the Health and Social Care levy. That is a huge investment in our health services, but he is right to highlight that also has to go hand in hand with reform and restructure to make sure that that taxpayers' money is invested properly and is spent efficiently.
Harry Sherman.
Mr Deputy Speaker, can I ask the Leader of the House if he will, of course he knows more about what's been going on in Number 10 and in the government than anyone else, but will he take seriously the fact this is a national crisis and a national emergency, and perhaps pro tem, just for the next 2 weeks and through the recess, there should be some serious cooperation between the opposition and the government front benches in order to serve the national purpose. And would he also, and I don't know, Mr Deputy Speaker, how we do this, when dear David was killed and when Joe was killed, I had the assurance that their families would be well looked after. Evidence has come to me that that isn't the case. Could we have